Hello. Hi out there. This is Paula with This is a Common Book Show, and I'm here with Richard and Tony and Brian. we are four. There's four of us today. I have not been reading much. I've been using that mental time to write. So I instead of sitting down and reading, I'm sitting down and writing, which I find I'm grateful that I'm able to do it right now. And writing a little bit about religion. And one of the things that I wrote in the last personal essay that I put together was something that happened when I was a 7-year-old child. And I was in church. Anybody who's Catholic might remember that from Good Friday until Easter Sunday, the crucifix in the church is covered in purple, purple being the color of sorrow. And so we all, as good little Catholic children at age 7, had to go and do the Stations of the Cross on Good Friday. We were off from school, but that didn't mean that we were off from God. So we had to go to church. And I went with a friend. I don't remember who the friend was, but I do remember somebody else was there with me. And we did the Stations of the Cross. And then at the end of the stations was the giant crucifix, and it was covered in purple. And we stood there looking up at it, and the purple moved. So we, of course, at 7, made the assumption that Jesus moved underneath the purple thing. And so we were scared and we ran out of the church, but we also felt like we had witnessed a miracle, and we were all like amazed that Jesus would show us something. We felt like Bernadette from, Our Lady of Lourdes. And it was just nobody believed us, of course, and of course it was probably somebody opened the door and the thing moved.
It was just, yeah.
So that had a profound effect on my childhood religious life. And that was right before I made my Holy Communion. So
it became real to you.
It was real. It was definitely real. And I mean, I know now that it wasn't real, but
I mean the idea of God or Jesus.
Oh, the whole thing
Yes.
was, of course, everybody in my life, my parents, my siblings, my teachers, I went to Catholic school, everyone I knew on my street, everyone was Catholic, and how could I possibly imagine that it was a hoax of that magnitude?
Right.
It was true, because everyone believed it. So I just happened to be special, and Jesus moved for me. And so, I mean, I just remember that weird incident right before I made my communion and then making my communion. So I was wondering, I know Richard was not only raised Catholic, but he went to seminary for a while. And, did you have any experience like that as a young child that was you had to believe was true because everyone you knew believed that everything was true?
I was approached by Mr. Tom Mazer recently, who said, I'm taking a course in writing poetry.
Oh.
It cost $100. It's put out by this professional poet. And she reads your work and she says, this is what I would change, this is what I would stay the same. I said, well, why, how many do you have to submit? He said, we have to submit 50.
Wow.
So he went through his archive, sort of like you, put together 50 poems and sent it to her. And I said, well, send that to me, because I want to read the 50 poems. One of which is a remarkable poem. And I wrote back, I said, this is the best thing you've ever written. He says, and it's about what you just said. He said, today I woke up and the clocks were supposed to be set back.
Right.
Which means that technically I was living a lie, because my body was waking up at the same time, but I was actually in a different frame of mind, So what I'm going to do now for the next month is I'm just going to pretend that my time is real and everybody else's time is fake. And then eventually I'll fall into their way of thinking. But he said, sometimes you need pretending in order to stay sane. Now, when I was a little kid, he said, I would go to church, and there would be this crucifix at Lent, and people were asked to
Yeah,
kiss
funny.
the cross.
Right.
And I said, Ma, what's this all about? She said, well, you don't really kiss it. You get real close, but don't get other people's germs on your lips.
Right. Right.
And he said, so even though they call it kiss the cross, she said, yeah, it's really just pretending.
She didn't know how profound she was being.
And she gave him the same advice when the bishop came
Or
to
did
visit the
she?
parish. You don't actually kiss the ring, you pretend to kiss the ring.
Yeah, I think that you were
When I was co-
supposed to actually kiss it.
When I was
mean,
confirmed by Bishop Edward D. Head of Buffalo when I was 13, I kissed his ring.
So he concludes his poem by saying, so much of religion involves pretending in hopes, like with daylight savings time, you'll eventually get into the flow and believe what others are thinking.
And do they expect you to do that when you're close to death and you're hoping that it's all true? I see a lot of really old people who have embraced religion in a strong way.
Now, I had an experience like yours, but I was 16 years old.
Really?
And I got really spiritual. I'll say spiritual more than religious. You know, most people would say religious, but I was always a night owl. I would stay up till 3, 4, even 5 in the morning, sometimes till the sun came up, reading all kinds of books when I was in high school, in the summer, when I wasn't in school. You know, I'd go to bed and my mom and sister would get up. I'd be up all night when it was quiet,
Yeah.
like you could hear a pin drop, and my neighborhood was quiet. There weren't a lot of cars. That's when I could always think. So I started reading the Bible every night. And this went on for weeks and weeks. And one night I was reading the Psalms. I was about 16, and it's all poetry. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts of the Bible. And it was absolutely quiet before sunrise. I could hear a few robins. It was like in June, July. I could hear a few robins. The sun was coming up in the east. And I was reading the Psalms, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I started hearing these faint voices. And I couldn't identify what they were saying, and then it got slightly louder, gradually louder, and it was singing. I realized it was singing. And at first, it was like a few voices, and then it was many voices. Then it was like a multitude of voices, and it got louder and louder and louder. And I suddenly, in my mind, realized it was the heavenly choir of angels. And it was so real that I wondered why my mother and sister down the hall in their bedrooms didn't hear it and wake up.
Do you
And
think you
then-
may have been hallucinating because
No,
you were
but-
up all night?
Well, this is the point. It never happened before that, and it never happened since. And the voices rose and rose and rose. And I actually got up and started looking around and thought maybe somebody had a stereo going at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. A neighbor. I started walking around and going to windows and saying, at first, rationally, I was like, this must be coming from a source. But there was no source. It was coming from like everywhere. And I was struggling to believe that it was actually happening as a rational human being. And then it just slowly, and I mean gradually, like somebody was turning a volume knob, it just slowly, the voices, and they were all singing glory to God in the highest, glory to God. And then it just slowly and very gradually died down, and I was left, and there was like a ringing in the air.
So you never had any other
Never.
because that's
Never.
I mean I don't mean to be skeptical, but
Well, yeah, sure, you can be skeptical.
But the thing is, it's a sign of
I was skeptical
schizophrenia.
when it happened.
I mean, my sister Marie, who is schizophrenic, she heard a choir of angels in the backyard near her laundry that was
Right.
hanging and she went outside to find the angels,
Right.
and there were no angels.
There's a famous recording of the supernatural being recorded.
Really?
Yeah. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah.
A pastor had standing room only for his sermons all the time. And somebody said, your sermons are so good, you should record them,
Okay.
right? And people will pay money to get the cassettes. This
Yeah.
is during the age of cassettes.
Uh-huh.
And he said, good idea. So he would record it, and then before you know it, he was getting like 25 requests a week
Wow.
to get a cassette. And that's a lot of
Yeah.
copying from one to another. So he
Back
went to the
then,
local
yeah.
stereo store, and he said, it's taken up a lot of time to make all these copies. Do you have a machine that makes like 5 copies at once? And they said, we do. And they sold it to him. And they said, but the beauty of this machine is that it not only records 5 copies at once, but it records 5 copies at once at 3 times the speed. So if you have an hour
Right.
sermon, you can knock it off in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This worked out great, and then all these people were getting copies, and then one day,
Someone called them up.
and you know what they said? There's a demon in your cassette tape that you sent me. That means that there's demons in church while you're giving your lecture, because I can hear them in the background going, you know? And he said, come on. And he went over to her house.
It
And,
sounds like a defect in the tape
and,
process.
and, and he heard it. Right, okay? He heard it.
Yeah.
So he gave her a fresh one, and he went over to the people that sold him the recording machine.
Yeah.
And he said, why on this tape is there this low volume demon in the background? And the guy said, I think I know why. So he took the tape, put it on a different machine, and instead of speeding it, and then he sped it up 3 times. And guess what the voice said? Breaker, breaker, are there any Smokies out there today?
Oh no! So it was a
So he said, when you were making the copy,
Yeah.
it picked up a CB radio going past your
Sure.
house at normal speed, but since it was taping it so fast that when she played it
Sounded
back
like a
on it,
demonic entity.
slowed it down.
Oh, that's so crazy. How did he even think to do that?
Yeah.
Luckily, he went back to the same people. Otherwise, he'd probably be thinking to this day there were demons in the church while I was giving my sermon.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. There's usually a logical explanation for everything. Now, I did have,
Usually.
I did have something happen that it was totally unexplainable, except the fact that I too at the time was reading the Bible, like it was like probably my second or third time through it, Old and New Testament, because I figured, and I knew I was missing something, and I didn't figure it out until I actually listened to a recording of the Bible, and then I realized this was the same story being told over and over again in different chapters.
Sure.
I didn't pick up on that because I was mispronouncing the names so badly and I thought, oh, there's multiple people by this name, and so it was really dumb on my part, but. So I was reading the Bible, and I was also taking a class at the Himalayan Institute, and it was called something joyful, The Art of Joyful Living. It's a book that I gave to Jim Pray, and it was very interesting. It was written by yogi master, blah blah blah, whoever, and it was a really interesting. It's where I got this idea that a piece of artwork like you do that comes out of you, there's no difference between the thing that's created and the creator. It's part of the person that creates it. I love this idea because then I extrapolated backwards because I was still believing in God at the time. And I said, okay, if that's true, then there's no difference between the creator and the created here. So we're all part of that same thing. And that's kind of how I developed my thoughts about everything being connected and, you know, and getting rid of the God and keeping the connectedness in the mix. But I was reading all this stuff, and I was crossing the street. I'll never forget it. It was behind the Ellicott Square building, and I stepped off the curb, and all of a sudden, and I don't know, it was a trick my mind played on me or what, I saw halos on every person that was in the street, and not only did I see halos, but there was light. And I thought I had a stroke at first. There was light connecting each halo. Like the halo was light, and the light was connecting everyone. And like I said, I thought I was either having a heart attack or a stroke. It only lasted a few seconds. And then when I was like petrified for those couple seconds. And then it went away, and I started walking, and I said, I am never telling anyone about this because I think I just had a psychotic episode. And I think that this is a very dangerous sign. And I have a sister who has schizophrenia.
Right, but that's your sister. Now, as I've mentioned before, I've been reading a lot about neurology for like 10 years now. And like my episode, if you want to call it that, or occurrence, now, yeah, that can be generated by the human brain. The human brain can do some amazing things. Just like what you saw on the street with the halos and the light between people connecting, it's possible that was something to do with the activity in your brain,
Right.
translating into your vision, what you're seeing.
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying that what happened, which, by the way, is all in the recent book that I wrote during the winter about my weird experiences of my life. But besides that, it never happened before that, and it's never happened since in the last 47 years. Like, if I did have, like, what I'm trying to lead up to is to say, like, you were worried you were having a psychotic. You didn't want to tell anyone. Now, psychotic is a very narrow definition, really. Most
but
people
if
are
I would have
psychotic.
finished the thought, I would have told you that I had one really bizarre thing because I didn't tell anyone, and then I read a book by this guy who now I can't remember his name. Thomas More, maybe. He was a Benedictine monk. Before he became a Benedictine monk, the exact same thing happened to him. He described exactly the same image. It didn't make me want to join the convent or anything, but there's an actual plaque in New York City marking where it happened to him. And he gave up everything, and he went into being a Benedictine monk because he really believed it was a religious vision. Whereas I'm uncertain exactly what it was. It did help me to connect the dots between the Hindu book I was reading and the Bible. There was like a connective tissue there that it helped me with. So I think it was my mind showing me that there is this connection, and it's nothing mystical.
And if you go back to Thomas
physical.
More's time, hundreds of years ago, science wasn't really developed yet. People would have tended to believe more.
I don't think Thomas More.
It's not Thomas More.
Oh,
I'm racking my brain. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the monk that lived in the United States?
Yeah.
Thomas, forget
Merton.
his last name.
Merton. That's it. Thank you both because I'm really bad with names.
From the early 1900s.
Yeah, Thomas
30s,
Merton,
40s,
and it's I think the book is called something about a mountain.
I read it,
And when I read it, I was laughing because I was like,
I didn't read all of it.
Who would have thought that this thing that happened to me happened to somebody else? And look at how it pushed him in that direction, but it pushed me in another direction, which was just more or less becoming a more responsible human being. I'm connected to all these people. I have to act as such, right? There is no difference between us. I am part of this. Right. And that's how it spoke to me, but it spoke to him, and it made him it made him change totally over into religiosity.
I think he was pretty religious before that, though. He already had a tendency.
Yeah, he was. I don't think he was
His
that.
upbringing was
Yeah.
religious. It didn't just. I don't think it was just that one experience. Maybe I didn't read the whole book, but
Yeah.
my mom actually gave me that book out of nowhere, and I'm like looking at it, going, "Why did my mother give me this book?"
Yeah.
She gave it to me about 5 years ago, and I was like,
Yeah. I read it.
"Oh my gosh!" She was all
And
excited.
it was
I
almost like I read it maybe a year after it happened, and then all of a sudden I wasn't so scared to tell people that it happened because I thought, wow, look at this, this happened to me. But and that almost sounds like after the fact. I read it, and then I don't want people to think I just said it happened to me too, but it did.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Maybe it was generated in your mind when you saw those lights, we'll just call them lights, over people that were connected to each other. Maybe it was just a creation of something going on in your mind, some physical thing that made your eyes see that, but what if it wasn't?
Well, it's possible, but I still think that
No.
whatever it was, it changed. Helped me change direction a little bit. But I asked Richard initially about any experiences he had, and he immediately sent it back to a friend. And you didn't, even as a little kid, you didn't have any little connections to, like when you were an altar boy or something. No.
The supernatural tends to stay away from me.
But you were a religious person as a child and as a young adult.
Oh, I have something to show you. The plaque. See? Where he had the revelation.
I
Yeah.
never heard about this plaque, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he talks about it in the book.
Now, is this outside a cathedral or a church, or it's just
It's just on the corner where it
somewhere?
happened. It's in New York,
Fifth
right where.
Avenue or something?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, I thought it was in New York. Okay,
Yeah, he went
I've
to
forgotten
the
that.
monastery there, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it happened in New York City, but that's neither here nor there. My memory, as you know, is not the best.
No, in fact, my brother has a different mindset than me.
Uh-huh.
So my mother died in this house,
Yeah.
right, in her bed. And my brother was afraid to go in her bedroom for fear that her ghost was there. All right? Shows you how differently we think.
How old was he?
Oh, he was in his 30s.
Oh, so he wasn't a child.
And
And what did
we
you say
think
to
so
him?
differently. I not only go in that bedroom, I sleep in the same spot
Yeah.
where she died.
Yeah.
The supernatural just doesn't have
Yeah,
any
my
hold on me
father
at all.
died. My father died in our house. I never felt any presence or thought, he's here with me. I do feel the presence of my father when I'm gardening, but I think it's just psychological because
Probably.
he was a gardener. That's how I'm not saying a physical presence. I feel connected to my father because of the gardening thing.
Yeah, I watch for fun, I watch supernatural videos where, like, most of the ghost hunter stuff I don't watch anymore because to me, it's so obviously fake, but the ghost hunters, they go to all these different properties and they'll be like, oh my God, so many people died here, it's gotta be haunted. And I'm watching it going, yeah, people die everywhere. Billions of people have died. Like, just because
every day.
someone died in this house doesn't mean
That
it's
would mean
haunted. Like,
that would
that's such a
mean hospitals would
ridiculous-
be the most haunted buildings in the world.
Right.
And
Excellent point.
Yes, that's exactly right. How about you? Do you ever have any weird mystical thing happen to you when you were a kid about religion?
Well, I had something happen to me back in, 1999, I think it was. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't religious that I know of. It was freaky, though.
Yeah.
Well, it started out, with a nightmare I was having. Basically, one of the nightmares I always had about being executed. Now, I'd had plenty of nightmares like that before, but not like this. Mm-hmm. And it took place in some old hotel out in Salem, Massachusetts.
Uh-huh.
And the place looked abandoned. It was like brambles and weeds all around it and trees and vines overgrowing it, but the execution was taking place there. Second floor, and they were slowly walking me down the room at the end of the hall. And, you know, the guards had a hold of me. My family was there. My friends were there. Everyone, and I was sobbing like a little kid, and I was scared like you wouldn't believe. And I remember at one point asking my mom how they were going to do this, because no one even told me how I was going to be executed. And she said, well, it was going to be the town doctor who's going to do it with a shotgun to the neck. And, you know, and I'm thinking, well, at least it'll be fast. I was terrified they were going to do a lethal injection because I was all scared to death of,
Yeah.
being suffocated. And finally, they get me down to the end of the hall, and I find myself alone in that thing, unshackled, just standing there. The door closes, and I'm looking around, and instead of the doctor, there's this woman there. And she's like tall and slender, and, like a white lab coat. And she got really long neck, short, close-cropped hair, blonde hair, blue eyes and button nose, and she got lips and fingernails painted this weird orange color. It looks like they could freeze you or burn you. You can't tell which. If it touched you, you wouldn't be able to tell which. And I asked where the doctor was, and she had said he had to go on a house call. And I asked where the gun was. She says that she doesn't use the gun. She uses lethal injection. Next thing I know, invisible hands are putting me down in this gurney, and the last thing I remember before I woke up screaming was her bending down to put the first needle in me. Well, like I said, I'd had nightmares of being executed before, plenty of them. Never knew why, never knew what I did, nothing. I woke up, and I'm thinking, okay, it was just another nightmare.
Right.
A few hours later, I'm over at Reed's in the south end of Olean getting my food for the week, and I'm walking around the end of the freezer section, and I bumped into somebody. And I was about to excuse myself, and then I took a good look at just who it was I bumped into. And she wasn't wearing the white lab coat. She was wearing a regular T-shirt. I don't remember what the lettering was on it, and cut-off shorts and sandals, wherever. But aside from that, she was a dead ringer from the woman that killed me.
Wow.
in the nightmare.
Do you think you may have seen her before in that store and just registered that look, and it came out in a dream?
I've never seen her before in my life.
Wow.
And I never saw her since.
That's freaky that you would run into somebody that you saw just that night in your dream. I mean, that to me is, I don't know. I mean, you can make up stuff in your head, but you register so much information in your brain that you don't even realize is there. So
I looked for her quite a while after that, but I never saw her again.
I have dreams all the time of people I've never met, but I don't know. Maybe I saw them on a bus, or maybe I saw them on the street, and I don't know who these people are, or if I made them up completely in my mind. But that must have freaked you out.
I just don't understand why this woman would kill me.
Yeah, well, it wasn't her. It was a woman you made up in your mind who happened to look like her. So just try to keep that in mind. Yeah, but all right. So we exhausted this topic, I think. So do you have something on your list, Richard?
Yeah. What does this photo represent to you? Union Road, Thursday, about 2 p.m.
Yeah, you showed me that on Messenger, and you said that it was a man carrying a cross that was. And Sanford took these photographs?
Yeah. Stopped his car, got out, photographed the guy.
Yeah. So I mean, he definitely would draw attention to himself.
I said it reminds me, it is a man carrying his burdens with him.
Well, that was the whole thing with Jesus and the cross, right? I mean,
but
that's what
this
talked
guy's
about.
got some burdens himself that he's carrying around, and he's trying to maybe exorcise his personal demons or whatever.
Well, he was advertising his church. He was, come follow me, basically.
He has a church.
He's a pastor starting a new church.
Right.
So
Everyone who came up to him, he gave them the card telling the time and the services.
I wonder if he had some kind of dream or vision saying, this is how you start your church.
Mm.
You never know.
Well, I like looking at the world in representational terms.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's rewarding to do that. All right.
Okay.
So when we had a bonfire,
Yeah.
you notice that we didn't sit around an electric light or a lantern. We
Right.
sat around a fire.
Right.
Why? Because it represents something in our minds.
Oh, it's like Jung would say. There's a component. There's some kind of a component, and it represents something important in the lives of everyone. So I don't remember what those are called. Those
You mean the archetypes?
the archetypes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I like to try to get people to use their minds to come up with representations.
Uh-huh.
So if you'd like, I'll tell you my representation.
Okay.
Okay. So just before he sent this to me, Sanford said, I was driving back from a wake of one of my fellow teachers who died unexpectedly. And then Sanford said the following. He said, whenever I go to a wake, I reflect on how precious life is.
It's a common thing to do, yeah.
Sure.
Then he sends me this photo about what happened on the way back from the wake. And immediately my mind connected the two. All right? Are there any religions that celebrate how precious life is? Because it's certainly not this religion.
No, it's the
They
afterlife.
use a symbol
Yeah.
of torture as
I know.
their symbol.
I always thought, you know what? I always thought if I, when we did the movie about Jesus, I always thought, and we never even mentioned this in the movie. This was one of the notes that never got into the movie.
Yeah.
Somebody wearing a crucifix, and Jesus seeing that saying, what the hell are you wearing that for? Why don't you wear something like, a goblet of wine, or, something that represents life? Why would you put my worst moment around your neck?
Yeah,
and-
if you say you're reinventing Christianity, and
Yeah.
you want it to be about life is precious, what kind of symbol do you recommend?
Well, one of the oldest Christian symbols is the fish, and there's Christian denominations that still use it.
I see it on cars
And
all the time.
But that goes back to really early times, the first few hundred years after Jesus died. The fish, it means something in Greek too. I can't remember now, but it's probably goes back to the Bible story of when he took a few fishes and fed 5,000 people with them and everything like that. But it also represents life. And
I don't see the connection. Life is precious, and a fish?
Well,
I would
fish
say
is
a flower
food,
would be better.
sustenance. In the Middle East, fish was one of your main food sources.
Oh, in that case.
So, living on the Sea of Galilee in the Mediterranean Ocean,
although it's
What-
counterintuitive for religion, I would say, like the Buddhists use, a smiling human.
But not a smiley face.
Not a smiley face, no, but a happy person.
That
That
would make sense. Then you'd have to have some kind of representation that represented every person.
right. So maybe it would look like a smiley face with a body. I
know,
don't know.
When I really think about it, though, Paula had a point there. The symbolization of the cross and what Christ might actually be thinking about
Yeah,
this.
like why? What is your problem? Yeah.
Well, case in point, okay? In August 2002, I was involved in a bad truck wreck. I was stupid enough not to be buckled in. I was in a torrential rainstorm. The truck hydroplaned. It spun three
Wow.
different times in two different,
Yeah, that
different
sounds
directions.
horrifying.
It ripped the sleeper box off of the
Oh my
frame
God.
and cartwheeled it alongside the out-of-control truck. My co-driver was in that. He came out with a bloody nose and a black eye. That was it, because he was asleep,
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, was very much awake and became a human pinball. The whole thing, from start to finish, was terrifying, and ultimately, I lost my job and got a big black mark on my record for
Oh,
10 years.
Yeah.
But a month or so after I was home recovering and trying to get back on my feet, God knows why, but my dad suggested that I draw the wreck, the truck.
Wow.
And you see my artwork, you see enough to know that I draw some pretty damn horrible things.
Yeah.
You know, some of them even disturb me. But to this day, I'm thinking, I remember my reaction. Hell no. Why would you want me to recreate in any form the worst thing that to date has happened to me? Wondering how I'm still alive, wondering why, wondering what's going to happen to me now, still feeling the pain, still trying to breathe, and seeing flashbacks in my head. Why would you want me to recreate that?
If a religion formed around that incident, let's say that there's this religion and it was the worship of Tony the truck driver, the last thing
Do
you want
not.
to see would be a wrecked truck around somebody's neck.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
Right.
But please, I am definitely not a role model. Go,
Well, but no,
go worship a plant or something.
I think the idea of a flower is a good idea.
Yeah.
But something representing joy,
Would a can of beer be a good symbol?
no.
Maverick the baby, my
Could be
buddy's
for
kid.
some people.
I'm going to tell you why.
I don't think so. But go ahead.
In a few months, there's a movie coming out where somebody is standing around at a bar in the 1960s, and he looks up at the screen of the Vietnam War and says, I support the troops in Vietnam, and I wouldn't mind giving every one of them a beer. And someone else at the bar says, you wouldn't have the guts to do that. And it escalates, and finally the guy goes to a travel agent and says, is there any way I could take a trip to Vietnam? And he goes, sure you can. And he gets a duffel bag full of beer, and he goes to Vietnam.
That's not going to be enough beer for everybody.
And
Right.
they explain to him, as he's taking the trip, they say, it's a lot easier to get out than it is to get in. He says, but that's okay, I'm on a mission. I want to give every one of the troops that I
You
run
mean
into
it's easier to get in than get out?
into a war zone.
Yeah.
It's easier
Yeah.
to get in.
Yeah.
So, and the movie is about him going to these troops
Is it-
and handing them a beer.
Is it based on a true story?
Good question.
That would be a wild
If it wasn't, then
story.
it should have been.
Very
Yeah.
odd premise for a movie.
Yeah.
Good question.
I think it was cool as hell.
I'm pretty sure, but the
I
thing,
mean, it could be good, sure.
but one of the flaws they have on movie trailers is they don't give you the name of the movie. Have you noticed that on all movie trailers?
Why? So you saw the trailer, but there was no name?
Well, all right, so suppose the thing comes up on the screen, best beer run ever. Is that the name of the movie, or are they just describing the movie?
don't know.
That might be the name of the movie.
Let's see if that's the actual
Could be.
name of the movie. Oh, anyway, if you were a producer who got pitched that premise, would you say, let's make that movie?
I don't think I.
No.
No. That's what it's called.
Oh, the greatest beer
Oh,
run
greatest
ever.
beer run ever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds.
You want to see the trailer?
Yeah, sure. We
Okay.
could
It's
watch.
based on a book, apparently.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay, let's see here. Let's see. We'll put down videos. And here it is.
Oh, is that what's his name? Zac Efron?
You might
looks
know
like
more
it.
than me.
He's a he's a pretty good actor. He's a funny guy too.
Played Ted Bundy.
Yeah, that's Zac Efron. Wow, that must have a pretty big budget.
Going to Vietnam, and I'm bringing a beer!
How absurd.
Are you ready?
What are we doing?
We're gonna run for our lives.
I guess it is based on a true story.
What a wacko.
Yeah, no doubt. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm Chicky Donahue, and I am not supposed to be in Vietnam.
Hey,
Could be a
get
good
ass out
movie.
of bed, you lazy bum. Look at you, sleeping your life away.
Look at these scumbags. Hey, you're embarrassing yourself and you're embarrassing your family.
Do these protesters not know that our soldiers see that on TV? I'd like to go over to Vietnam, track down all the
That's
boys
Bill
in the
Murray.
neighborhood, and give them a beer.
Yeah, it is.
Do what?
Bring him beer.
He's not serious. He's hammered. Look at him.
Boston
Man,
guys.
Stone
Bring him beer.
sober. That's his fifth beer, maybe, tops.
I'm going to Vietnam, and I'm bringing a beer! Hey, Chief, no chance you have a ship heading to Vietnam.
1,700 hours.
Tonight? It's not gonna be easy. But I'm gonna show them that this country is still behind them.
You're gonna get yourself killed over there.
It's like you said, everyone's doing something. I'm doing nothing.
Smuggling beer into a war zone? That's not the smartest thing I've ever heard of. It's certainly not the worst either.
What if you start up here with Collins?
Just came to deliver a sudsy thank you card.
And then, if you're still alive,
New York. Thanks a lot.
you can hustle down to Dugan.
Ta-da!
Chicky?
I brought you beer.
You shouldn't be here.
You think this is funny?
I'm not doing this for laughs. I'm doing it for all you guys.
Come on, time to go.
I would love to have been in Vietnam
Yeah.
to see the reaction of the soldiers. Must have thought he was insane.
You don't get it, do you?
The soldiers must have.
I don't know what to
to
say. I don't think although I really like Bill Murray, I don't know how much he's in the movie, but
Beyond being the bartender or whatever.
I don't think I want to see this movie.
How about you, Tony?
It's funny. It looks funny, but yeah, there's not much there. It's, go ahead, Tony.
You have no desire?
No,
No. How about you,
no,
Tony?
I'm with Paula on that.
This is almost like Snap Judgments, Richard. We've gone back to Snap
I
Judgments.
have a lot of desire, but not to see that movie. If
Yeah.
it comes for free on one of my streaming
It
services,
is a
I'll check it out.
made for it's not a
Good evening, sir.
holy crow, look at you.
Yes.
I like the
wow.
new look.
It's not gonna stay white.
I like it though. You look like the man from Glad. I love it. I love it. It looks cool.
In a James Bond film, would he be the villain?
No, he'd be the
Yeah.
No, I don't think he'd be the villain. I think he'd be the millionaire who's hiring James Bond to get rid of the villain.
Or playing poker at the table.
I don't think we have a chance to see you. Anyway, Ken just walked in and
Yeah.
he's looking fabulous.
Would you like to sit in and join us, Ken?
Just
People
about
giving
anything.
beer to soldiers?
Man, you have got to show your look.
And when you hear based on a true story, that can be incredibly loose, too.
Especially since that's how The Exorcist starts.
Yeah.
The first frame, based on a true story.
I love the glasses. I love the way they match the cravat.
Yeah.
How do you get rid of the Playboy, though?
Cravat, baby. That's a great word. Ain't it? It certainly ain't. I mean, it is.
Wow, and you even smell good, too.
What happened to Sterling's, man?
He is at Joy Trotter's. Joy Trotter is a woman who, who is a friend of his from many years, and she has a porch party after the Elmwood Festival of the Arts. So he is there, and I will be meeting him there after the show. But
You say he smells good too?
Brian thinks he smells good.
Well, actually, I was being not quite honest because I hate cologne and perfume, but
Well, now
I
Tony's
was
going to
just
come and
being,
sniff you too.
yeah.
This is quite a new.
No, I'm extremely sensitive to chemicals and perfume, and I cannot wear cologne on my person because I can't handle it. I get a headache.
There's only one.
Yours isn't that bad, though.
There's only one perfume I like, and it's Shalimar, and it's an old perfume.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
And I found out the hard way that it was the perfume of choice for old Jewish ladies.
Yeah.
And I found this out because when I wore it, a lot of young Jewish guys would follow me around.
Get out of here.
I
really?
swear to God, and they were like, "I love that smell. I love that scent. What are you wearing?" And I'd be like, "Something's going on here."
I'm not your mother. Yeah.
Then I found out from my friend Valerie, I think, told me.
Yeah.
But yes, hello. You don't have a headset though. You don't care. You just want to be seen and
So
not.
are you coming or going to somewhere special or?
A wedding?
Nice.
Yeah, who got married?
Nephew.
Ah. Oh, your sister's son?
Brother's son. Or son, sorry.
Oh, I forget that you have a brother.
I got two of them.
The orange.
The yellow. Is there a white?
There's a red here. I don't know where the white is. That's green.
Green.
I'm connected to that. You want to connect it to the red?
Look at the edge of the table.
Ah, here it is.
There you go.
Aha, she said.
Can you get it in?
That's what she said. How much with you?
Yeah.
I know. I'm not above some raw, nasty humor sometimes.
Here's the
good.
Here's the other thing I wanted
We're gonna
to,
go places.
to present to everybody.
Okay.
Okay.
Winston
Famous
Churchill.
photo.
Yes.
Okay. Taken by a photographer named Joseph Karsh.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, his name is Yusuf Karsh. And when he was going to school to study in college, he got a job at a hotel,
Okay.
and it helped him make his way through school. So, when he became famous, he wanted to show his thanks to the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when he took this famous portrait of Winston Churchill, he made a specific copy, handed it to the hotel, and said, "This is my thank you for the years that you supported me." They put it up in their lobby with all the other works of art, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, last Wednesday, 3 days ago,
Okay.
a janitor was doing his rounds, cleaning, dusting, and everything, and he looks at the photograph on the wall, and he goes, "This is mounted differently than all the other works of art. It's kind of chintzy the way it's mounted." And he points it out to his superior. He says, "Why are they all so beautifully mounted, but this one is like just hanging by a wire? What's going on?" Guy looks into it. He goes, there's something off about this." They call in somebody who is familiar with the works of Joseph Karsh, and he goes, "Somebody took the original and replaced it
figured
with a
that.
copy."
Really?
That happens all the time.
And he said, well, a lot of people stand in front of this thing with selfies because they're always sending them to us, you know?
Yeah.
He said, "Let's look at those." And they go back a month and 2 months. And they determined it was switched 8 months ago.
Wow.
So for the last 8 months, people have been standing in front of a copy instead of the original.
Nobody knows anybody taking his down.
That's crazy.
Now, this
How
is-
could they get away with that?
Okay, so if you're the manager now of this hotel,
They're fired.
do you spend any time or money trying to find the original, or you just leave the copy up there?
Well, it depends. I mean, they must have some kind of system where you can see what goes on in the lobby. I don't know how
Right,
if,
cameras.
right, if they have the cameras, if they have the footage that they save for 8 months,
No, they save the footage for 6. So they-
6
yeah,
months, and they just missed it then, right?
yeah, by 2 months.
That's crazy. So okay, I have heard.
This is what I'm actually asking you is, should we be obsessed with the original when the copy's just as good?
You have an open book here, and you're in the middle of the story. You have to go after the original because you have to find out how the story ends. Or, unless, in the words of Clive Barker, the story may have had no beginning and so has no end.
So you would be in favor of going after the original?
Hell yeah.
I would be.
Everybody would be except me.
As famous as he was, I would think the British government or authorities would also be interested
As
in
a
going after-
photographer, maybe that's because you photograph people. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a people photographer,
Right,
photographer.
But is the copy as good as the original? This is my thought.
But the thing is, it may be, but the first one was a gift from the artist.
Yeah.
Right.
Which makes it special in my estimation. And I think that I would keep the fake one hanging, but do as much investigation as possible to see. I mean, somebody must be trying to sell this photograph.
Actually, a lot of people steal paintings and things, and they keep it in their private house, and for decades, they'll never try to sell it. This has happened to like famous former old masters paintings that rich people will buy them on the black market, get somebody to steal it, and it'll be in their house for 50, 60, 70 years, and then it'll turn up again, and they'll actually trace it then.
Where did this forger get the negative to make this print?
With the
Maybe it
forger
was the
pro-
actual guy that shot it. Huh?
He's dead.
Oh, that's too bad.
So now we're back to the beginning of the show. Miracles.
It was his ghost.
But what
Son?
someone could have done is just found a copy on the internet and just had it printed out.
So they'd be able to manipulate it with Photoshop well enough to get it to that size?
Maybe.
Well,
Well,
how
it's,
big
it's
was
only
it?
this big.
Oh.
Well, that's
It's
pretty
not
good
life
size.
size.
Oh, well, I thought it was, when you said it was hanging on the wall, I just had this idea that it was like one of the presidential portraits, you know?
Yeah, so did I.
Right,
So
right,
did I.
right.
But you'd still have to walk in with it.
And you
Take
go
the
down to
time to
Staples
take it
and copy
down.
Somebody, so what, okay, I've got a picture in my mind because I've seen somebody steal a crib one time. Out of
Crib is big.
I saw someone steal a crib when I was working at one of the department stores I worked at when I was younger. Two guys came in with overalls,
Yeah.
like they were part of the
Oh, like from a moving company?
part of the display people. You know, they wore uniforms that made them look like they were both dressed the same.
Yeah.
They came in with a toolbox. They went into the children's department. There was a crib on display. They dismantled it. Nobody asked them any questions, and they walked out with the crib. And because they looked like they were supposed to be there and they knew what they were doing, so they stole the crib. So, I mean, that's the only way I can imagine that they came in, they were somehow looked like they belonged there. They took the picture down to maybe clean it, like they were the cleaning staff or something, and they just switched it out. Maybe they had a cart where, you know, and maybe they took everything else down too and cleaned it, and just put something different up for this one.
Well, how do you know they walked off with it? Later? Or?
No, they put it in whatever their cleaning cart. They put it in the cleaning cart, and they had the copy in the cart, and they put it on the wall. I've got a criminal mind.
Really?
I've always had a criminal. I don't act on these things, but if you ever need any ideas, I'm your gal. When I used to walk into department stores, I used to look for the security systems, and in looking at the security systems, I'd figure out how to steal things out of the store.
He's all happy.
I'm starting to
Keep
like
going.
you more and more with every podcast.
Gotta give him some
I
popcorn.
think I got a thing for you.
Well, I used to shoplift when I was a kid, and I got really good at it. And then I stopped after I had my daughter because I felt like if I got into trouble like that, they'd take her away from me. So I stopped doing it.
I was also very good at it.
Everyone has a bit of larceny in their soul. Everyone. And
it's what you were talking about before. It's all about looking like you belong there.
Right.
And everything's normal. And most
Absolutely.
people do not pick up on a lot of details. They're distracted.
I'd tell you a true story, but I can't.
You're on
I know. You know what?
live,
You
yeah,
probably have the best stories of any of us. But
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I think you inspired me to tell the stories.
But were you crazy enough to take a duffel bag full of beer to Vietnam just to hand them to the troops?
No, that's dumb. To me, that's dumb.
Yeah, pretty wacky. But
I actually stole my own artwork from GCC's gallery.
you did?
Okay, here's the story real
I
quick.
know about it now.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm gonna yell this out in the air. This one's for Pam. Don Green was the acting vice president of GCC at the time, and I say acting vice president loosely because he did a very bad job of it. Apparently, when the display time came around, we put our stuff up in the gallery outside the theater. He had a problem with the artwork I did and decided to use his mini Gestapo to goose up over us and told me, you know, I got to put up something tamer, something non-offensive, something this and that. And when I told them, what if I don't? Basically, they told me, well, then we're going to use your rebellion and, you know, and punish some of the people who stood by you. I got this from one of my professors, and you know, when I went and confronted him and asked him why he would pull such an underhand move, he denied it. He actually stammered and told me, no, that was Marsha Morrison's idea. That Marsha did it. I didn't know. I'm thinking, what a weak-kneed wuss, you know. And so I ultimately put something tamer up, but if he'd actually read the storyboard, he would have saw it was just every bit as vile. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm still being I'm being a tool here. So I wrote out a very nice call-out letter to him, basically insulting the intelligence he didn't have. Took my 2 pieces down, copied that for my own fun, and put the original up on the hook and walked out. Security guard even gave me a ride to town.
Rebel!
And that is how you motherfucking steamroller.
So I was looking at your Patsy shirt,
Oh, yeah.
and I have a friend on Facebook. It's her ex-girlfriend,
Yeah.
Oswald's Judith Baker.
Really?
She's on my Facebook page. Yeah.
The friends we pick up.
She's up there.
Wow.
Like 80 now?
Well, what started it was I had went into a, I usually go to Wesselman's to get my dry cleaning.
Yeah.
And I was in Kenmore and I saw this little, you know, hole-in-the-wall place. I wanted to compare to prices.
Yeah.
So I walked in and there was nobody there at first, but then this chick had just came in the back and she had some scrubs on.
Yeah.
And like this is her second job.
Yeah.
So it was like, I know, you don't have to tell me. I already know the cure for cancer is at Roswell. And she said, yeah, it is. I says, well, I figured that, you know. And then she told me the story that Baker, Judith, she doesn't like Judy, Judith, the government commissioned her back in, was it the 60s or whatever, and into Roswell to develop cancer to kill Castro. And I was like, really? And she told me how to find it online. I found it. It was there. And then I looked for her on Facebook. I found her. I friended her. And she was like, well, why do you want to be my friend? Because she didn't know me.
Oh, yeah. I always ask people it.
So I told her the story.
Yeah.
And she added me.
So she was Oswald's girlfriend, and the CIA or whoever got her to go to Roswell. Was she a scientist?
Student or something, yeah. It was in there. It was online.
That's a crazy story.
So it gets better. So I think it had to be this year, beginning of this year. Bowerly, every once in a while he'll talk about, you know, Oswald.
Yeah.
And assassination and all this and that. And I've caught it a couple times, even when I was on her friends list.
Yeah.
But I was never around a computer or to send a message to Bowerly or anything.
Right.
So there's one day I finally got it, sent it to his email, and he was like, oh, yeah, I heard about her, and she's a fraud, and this and that. And so he asked me to ask her a question. I said, I got a better idea. I'll let her know that I'm talking to you, and you guys can converse. They're friends.
Thank you.
She must have proved it to him. And they're friends. And
really?
She was on his radio show, live. Well,
you brought them together.
Not live.
Good for you.
But I was just thinking about it here.
Yeah.
You could bring her into here maybe somehow live.
Ooh.
Judith Baker.
Well, that would have been part of what they called the MK Ultra program.
And she wrote a book.
It was a real program in the late 50s and into the 60s.
Okay. All right.
What was that buzzer?
We're done.
show?
Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. It's been real. We're going now.
We're all getting up, handcuffed to places.
Yeah, and it is known for sure